Shannon Hosford. I'm CMO at MLSE, and my job today is to be the moderator of this fantastic panel in front of us here. Our topic is creative marketing strategies and alternative revenue sources. So let's get started with having our panel introduce themselves and maybe giving us a little bit of background on themselves.
Hi, I'm Marnie Starkman, Senior Vice President of Marketing and Business Operations for the Toronto Blue Jays. This is my 10th season with the club, starting in game entertainment, into promotions, overseeing marketing, and now marketing and business ops. I am a graduate for the University of Toronto, did my postgrad at York Schulich program, and then had the lovely opportunity to work at Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment for a few years where I learned a ton. Then headed to Vanok for the Olympics, and then ended up with the Blue Jays. So we oversee everything from game entertainment, promotions, marketing, loyalty, player, family relations, pretty much anything that doesn't fit anywhere else in the organization ends up under marketing. So that's sort of my portfolio.
My name is Lisa Ferkul. I'm the Director of Hockey Sponsorship at Scotiabank, and I have the pleasure of overseeing anything and everything hockey at the bank. Like many of you in the room, I've had a passion for sports my entire life. I was an athlete and a fan, and I was lucky enough to have that translate into career, starting actually working with Marnie. I was a coordinator and intern at the Toronto Argonauts, and she worked on our game day, and have transitioned, have seen the agency side, and now on the brand side with Scotiabank. Happy to be here.
Hi, I'm Eric Johnson. Oh, that's loud. I spent 20 years at ESPN running global ad revenue for them, and then recently have launched my own firm, kind of a venture revenue firm in sports media entertainment. I'm also the faculty director at UCLA Anderson, the MBA program, for their media, entertainment, and sports, and on the board as well. So I've been around the sports business for a long time, shared the same passion. On a drive from Las Vegas to LA, decided that I was going to get into sports, and that was on a Sunday, and on Monday I got 2 job offers I didn't expect. So, very lucky.
Putting out the positive karma.
That's what it's all about.
It's good advice.
The universe listens.
I'm old. I've worked a bunch of different places. Thank you.
You get 2 of them.
Yeah, there you go. I feel like Mark Zuckerberg at Congress. I worked at Nike for 12 years. I was Chief Marketing Officer at Bank of Montreal down the street. I run some agencies, and my career highlight right now is 6 months ago. I took over from my mentor and leader, Dr. Brian Cooper over there, and now I'm the CEO and president of MKTG, which is a sports marketing and lifestyle company here in Canada, part of the Dentsu network.
We're going to break a little bit from tradition here and show a video. I thought it was interesting for students here to know that sports marketing is not like traditional marketing. Things change. The team changes, you win, you lose. So if we could just start with the video here. This is from our world, a little bit dated. It's a recap of last year.
John Tavares is a Toronto Maple Leaf.
best gift that I could ever get. swimming gift for Kawhi.
We win in Toronto, and we'll win some more in Toronto.
All right. I should mention that I brought some replica rings for some great questions at the end, so this is some incentive. So a great sports marketer knows how to capitalize on moments. One of the great moments from last year was renaming the Scotiabank Arena. So I'm going to turn it over to Lisa to talk us through her creative strategies as it related to that.
Thanks, Shannon. So I had the privilege of being involved with both the negotiation, but I'll talk a little bit about our strategy, because going into year one of Scotiabank Arena, we didn't know that the day our name went up on the building that John Tavares was going to sign with the Leafs. We didn't know that the Raptors were going to win a championship in our first year on the building. For the bank, it's so much more about our name on the side of the building. It's about our customers and enhancing the fan experience. So some strategies that we undertook in year one of expediting name adoption were all around improving the fan experience. If you've been there lately, you know that we've enhanced the Scotia Club. So the formerly Air Canada Club has a real premium feel to it, a higher end experience, and that's been a big win for us. In 2018, at both the Leafs and Raptors home openers, we sponsored with Metrolinx. We looked at journey mapping, and we know that the subway and transit is one of the biggest ways people get to and from the arena. And we offered a free ride to Leafs and Raptors home openers. So that automatically created some favorability. We partnered with our influencers, Austin Matthews and your awesome mascots, the Raptor and Carlton. And when people were searching Scotiabank Arena, they would, obviously they had the habit of trying to break a ACC or Canada. We'd disrupt them with a message that had Austin or one of the mascots saying, "I think you meant Scotiabank Arena." So really proactively leveraging digital capabilities to enhance the fan experience, but also expedite that name adoption, which I'm proud to tell you that in just over a year and a half, we've surpassed, sorry Marnie, our friends at the Rogers Centre who've had their name on the building for 14 years in terms of searches. Searches are up 104% from last year. Awareness and name adoption are at 80 and 84% respectively. So it was a lot of fun, and I'm very proud of what we've accomplished.
And really an outstanding job.
Yeah.
The rest of the panelists, do you have any moments that you capitalized in your career in terms of a big marketing moment?
You must have something. You've been
No.
doing this for 30 years.
30
You got
years,
something.
I got something.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think one of the things I'm most proud of is a little show called ESPN College Game Day, built by the Home Depot, which some of you may have heard about. There was another advertiser who was on that show before Home Depot. Does anybody know what that advertiser was, by chance? There's a reason why. It was Discover Card. And one of the things that I think is really important with sports, and what I've seen in my time, is longevity within a sport for a sponsor. Dipping in and dipping out has little value, but building over the course of time, even the 1 year success is amazing, but in 10 years, what that's going to be able to do for the brand. We've seen it again and again, because sports are a self-identifier, right? Like music, people think of their sport teams and their affinity as part of them. And certainly with social media, Gen Z and millennials are some of the best brand marketers that they have. So with Game Day, they didn't just come in and put their logo on the desk. They built a bus. They built a fan experience. It's an interesting show because on Saturdays we show up somewhere and we don't know where we're going next week until announcing it on Sunday. So literally 6 days to get to whatever the new town's going to be. So they've created this spectacle and circus around that, and Home Depot was a part of every facet of that. They took the on-air talent and they introduced them to the stores and to the communities so that they felt as though Home Depot was part of who they are. And I would argue that with Home Depot, if they were to take their name off the desk, if it went from being an orange desk to being green or blue or yellow or pink, that college football fans would actually be upset about that. They've woven themselves into the fabric of college football, and I think that's what makes a good sponsorship.
I think I'll jump in because I think on the sponsorship side, it's almost easier as an endemic sponsor, as a Red Bull or a Nike or a Labatt's to have an authentic connection with the sport property that you're connected with. And so I like awesome on Home Depot. And I think you don't need to dig too hard for some amazing Canadian examples as well. So like Sun Life, they're on the patch of the Toronto Raptors. A lot of you would hopefully recognize that. But what they've done an amazing job is developing an authentic connection with that relationship with the Raptors. So how does Sun Life Insurance figure out how to develop an authentic connection with the world champion from the NBA? Is they tied it in with health and wellness, and then they thought through some extensions related to diabetes and diabetes research, and developed a program around Dunk for Diabetes, which was an educational program that they took coast to coast across the country, and they targeted at school kids and to adults to educate them about diabetes. And so I use it as an example. It might not be the sexiest example, but it's a great authentic example of taking a non-endemic sponsor and developing an emotional connection with your property.
Fantastic. Marnie, did you have one? Or
Yeah, I think for us, I mean, in sport, we'd be lying if we say we don't try and capitalize on wins. So for us, I mean, our where we were able to really grab, I think, a fan that we didn't have was in 15 and 16. And I think what we tried to do from a brand standpoint, still being authentic to who we were, was we tried to make a bit of a shift from a more traditional team brand, even just in terms of our creative, and tried to go a little bit younger. Although I think being self-aware, we're aware of, the Raptors down the street, and I think aware that we don't have the same demo. But I think in 15 and 16, from a marketing standpoint, we were allowed to sort of jump off of 2 competitive years where we had a fan base that hadn't been out to the ballpark before. So we just did basic things in terms of programming in 17. Even though we knew we were about to go through a rebuild, we felt like we had a fan base that we hadn't had before. So I think, that's one thing that's fortunate on the team side, is really being able to sort of jump off of team performance. Mm-hmm. And then obviously on other times it's more challenging. But I think when you do have those moments, it's what you do so that you set yourself up so that when you're winning, you're sustainable in terms of what you're doing.
Good. So there's a lot of disruption in the marketplace now, specifically around technology. Can you talk to us about, in terms of, what is the biggest disruption to your business and how you get structuring against it? Michael.
Oh, there you go. All right, I'll go.
Just call you.
Yeah, disruption, man, lean in. It's exciting and it's fun, and that's why every day is different. And there's a lot of people in this room that have a passion for sports, but have a passion for business and a curiosity about marketing. Okay, so I think the biggest disruption is around, exciting disruptions around measurement. And back in like the 1890s when I first started, and I'd be hanging up banners at the Olympics in 1896 in Athens, and I talk about brand awareness. And then the great Brian Cooper would tell me, hey, you know what, Beckerman, brand awareness is marketing's fool's gold. It's just a propensity of how much money you've spent. Like, who really cares about brand awareness? What I'm really interested in terms of how to move my customer through the funnel, right? And so if we think, you got to look up at the screen here now, because I'm going to use my hands, okay? So we talk about the customer funnel, right? And so right at the very beginning of the customer funnel, the top of the funnel, that's about brand awareness. We've got to work way harder than brand awareness, and we've got to figure out how to take sponsorship, not just at the top of the funnel, but right through the funnel, to make sure that you're using your sponsorship assets to have the right content in the right place at the right time to build that relationship between your client and your target audience. And that's what's going to drive return on investment. And so I think one of the most exciting things from the disruption side related to technology is the quality of information we have to measure success of our sponsorships, but also the thoughtfulness that needs to go into understanding the customer journey, not just awareness.
Michael's stealing my thunder. I was going to leapfrog on, ROI is a buzzword in the industry. And at the bank, I think our definition of ROI has really evolved over the last 10, 12 years since we've built equity in being Canada's hockey bank. And whereas before we were measuring success around awareness and upper funnel metrics like awareness, favorability, and purchase consideration, we are evolving our definition of ROI to be much more acquisition focused. And to your point about the biggest disruptor is not only the measurement around it, but technology. We have technology at our fingertips to drive people. If anyone was at all on social media yesterday, hopefully you saw Hockey 24 was a big day for Scotiabank. We We were petitioning all Canadians across the country to tell us about their hockey routine, from eyes open to eyes closed. And that's our upper funnel tactic. But once you start to see this level of content, and we'll get into branded content, I'm sure, we work with our digital factory, and we're going to serve you up an ad that's contextually relevant about our products. And then we're going to serve, once you see that, we're going to serve you up another one that's going to give you an acquisition ad. And we're going to bring you on this journey, to your point, to hopefully bring you on as a Scotiabank customer.
Yeah, and I think on the team side, the biggest thing is just the live game itself. So it's funny, I just got back from our industry meetings, and it was so frustrating because the first couple of days I was like, we are talking into the narrative of our game being an old game, a slow game, a 4-hour game, but nobody goes to a party on a Friday night and says, wow, I had a really good time, but that was like a really long party. Or no one goes to a concert and says, that was a great concert, but wow, that was long. So the one thing we're really trying to shift is like our game is what our game is, and people much higher than me are going to be focusing on that. Let's control what we can control, and that's the fan experience. That's how do we get people to the ballpark? How do we create social settings? How do they watch the game differently? How do they consume the game? If they don't care what the final score is, what are we still doing at the ballpark to retain them, entertain them? Because otherwise they're going to be at a sports bar, or they're going to be going down the street to watch more competitive game certain years. And what do we have to do at our ballpark to create that experience that is different than the traditional way of consuming baseball? And I think that's where we sort of need to focus, and we're looking at that even in an older stadium on just literally more social spaces, drink rails, events happening within an event. Nobody wants to come pregame and postgame. We're in the biggest city. You can go to the theater, you can go to other bars, you can do other things. For us, it's during the game, what are we even doing to entertain? And that might be a different way of thinking from a traditionalist, but a way that we have to think in order to meet the needs of sort of all different types of fans.
I'd say from my perspective, I'm working with a lot of companies who are dealing with, we're on the precipice of a real fundamental shift between a viewer and a marketer as it relates to live sports. So when I was with Michael back in Athens in 1896, we had this bond that I will give you free content and you watch my ads. And we all lived with that, and we were very happy with that. That bond, I think, is eroded. And it's clearly proven by the fact that people are willing to pay so many different services to be able to have ad-free commercials. So that's one thing. The other thing is younger generations, the whole sports rights business is built upon you consuming lots of live sports for 3.5 hours, 4 hours, and watching a commercial load of 60 to 80 commercials during that. The whole fundamental of the business is based on that. And fans are able to consume, they can follow the Raptors or the NBA, and they don't ever have to watch a single game, which is where the fundamental economics of what sports is, and they can still be a voracious sports fan and know exactly what's happening. My son is a Red Sox fan, I'm a Dodgers fan. We were watching the World Series together. He was never in the room watching it on television. Yet every time something happened with the Red Sox, he would walk in the room and go, double play, Dad, we got you. He knew exactly what was happening without ever watching any of those commercials, and I think that marketers are trying to figure out how to get around that.
I'm interested in your thoughts, because I know you've got some expertise on this, just in terms of some of the best practices that we're seeing in esports. And I think a lot of us kind of shrug our shoulders, and we don't necessarily understand why people would want to watch somebody else play a video game. But if you kind of take a step back and get over our stubbornness around that and be intellectually curious. Like, to me, it's fascinating in terms of the level of engagement of what's happening on a Twitch, what's happening with the microtransactions, the way I'm able to interact with streamers and influencers and those types of things. Can you riff a little bit in terms of what you're seeing from an esports perspective, from a content consumption side?
I would say absolutely like participation and consumption in the same way that happens with regular sport in terms of voraciousness, ability to be able to interact on 2 to 3 to 5 different levels at the same time. So it's the exact opposite of a passive experience of linear television. So the people who are doing well, what I've seen, are the folks who are thinking about engaging that environment and trying to create transaction within that environment. I think it's undeniable. I think it would be like saying I'm a big football fan. They call it soccer, but I call it football. But to deny that, football is not the same as hockey, or cricket is not as important as hockey. It feels a little bit like that. Like if you're not a gamer, then you don't get it, and you can kind of throw it away. But it's actually the passion. You can literally look. We trended this at ESPN. You could look at youth participation in sports And you could look at that trend and how that's declined over the past decade, and you see exactly that same trend in growth for gamers.
Yeah, nice, thanks.
Well, I think at MLSE, for sure, being authentic, having our brands be authentic in this space is so important. In fact, one of the roles that we just hired was a celebrity influencer on our PR team. So actually being in the space and connecting with celebrities, connecting with influencers, like 2 years ago, that wouldn't have even been a role. So for the students here that are thinking about where do you want to go, I think that's in our space very interesting. Has anyone here structured their teams differently based on these new market trends?
Probably a little bit different. I think for us, a big thing has been like data and how we're actually using data. So we went through a few years where all we kept saying was we're collecting data, collecting data, collecting data. And then I would say like, well, what are we doing with this data? Like, it's great that we're collecting it, but like in the end, what are we actually using it for? And I think that was a shift in our organization, was literally starting to merge the business analytics team into every area of our business so that we're making informed decisions. And that doesn't always mean that the data is driving the decisions. But I think it's at least providing us with a base for the decision making, and whether that's just changing our ticket philosophy or our products that we're offering, or in general our fan services programs. I think that's been probably a structural shift that we've made in the past couple of years, just in terms of structuring the organization.
Anyone else?
I think like on the agency side, it's like there's no greater time to be in marketing right now because there's a blurring of the swim lanes. And so Lisa's a great client of MKTG's, and she's very careful to make sure that we've got all of the agency partners around the table, whether it's mass, whether it's social, whether it's PR, whether it's sponsorship, whether it's media, sitting with the commercial teams on the client side as well to develop kind of the greater good in terms of the customer experience, to leverage off of the level of investment that we're putting behind it, but also in terms of the metrics and the measurements as well. So it's a ton of fun on the agency side right now because you're working with best practices in terms of experts on other marketing disciplines to do the greater good for your client.
I would speak on behalf of UCLA. We developed a master's program in sports analytics 3 years ago. Had 37 applications the first year. By next year, it'll be up to 2,600 applications. It is definitely a trend and an interesting opportunity. I'd say the other thing that we spend a lot of time thinking about for UCLA is how do you leverage technology to create more outreach for the school to students around the world. A lot of colleges tend to think about recruiting global students to come to their 1 square mile campus, and they think about it under those terms, and we're thinking about how to use technology to actually take your school around the globe and create opportunity for lots of students.
I would just add to all that I think the key is curiosity and educating your team. We're a non-traditional marketer, a marketer, a digital marketer. We're all marketers, but there's now a baseline expectation that you're educating yourself and evolving your team to understand the full funnel of marketing, and to build on what used to be called in this little silo, digital marketing. Everybody has an expectation to understand digital marketing because we're in a technology and a digital world these days.
I love that. Like be committed to marketing and have subject matter expertise around sponsorship. Be committed to marketing and have subject matter expertise around social or influencer. I love that.
That's great.
And really embracing technology in terms of alternate revenue streams too. So if you're a fan of any of our teams, you'll notice now that if you're at the Scotiabank Arena, you can now mobile order. Our POS systems have been updated. So there's a number of ways that we've enhanced the fan experience, but ultimately is driving alternate revenue streams also. So I just want to turn it over to the panel here and ask, this will be our last question before we go to the crowd. So just touch on that.
Yeah, I mean, we have a unique situation. Major League Baseball's digital rights are owned by the league, and in that it's kind of forced us into a space that we probably weren't as comfortable with off the start. But I think just even generally, we use Fortress for our season ticket members and our loyalty program, and just the ability to monetize, ability to have people, reward people with eCash, having them spend with eCash. Not only has it added another revenue stream, but it's also really allowed us to track our consumer and our fan. And I think that is probably more valuable than the additional revenue that we've gotten. It also allows sponsors to connect differently. For us, we're unique too, similar to the Raptors, but probably unlike the Leafs. We have a national market that we can sell to. So we try as much as we can to really look at the partners and the brands, even less than the revenue sometimes, on, okay, what can this partner do for us that might help us from an additional revenue standpoint? So a few examples.
Yeah, I'll point to Shannon. MLSE is a world-class organization, and we're very pleased to be partners with them. They're their largest partner, and the things we're talking about with your team now these days, Shannon, are all about enhancing the fan experience, whether it be the Scotia Perks program that gives customer benefits to Scotiabank card members at discounts at concessions, discounts on merch at retail, but also they have greater expectations on the fan experience. So your team is actually getting ahead of that and have looked at pain points. What are the biggest pain points when you go to a game? Waiting in line to the bathroom. So they're introducing technology across the app that'll show you where the shortest lines to get into the venue are, where the shortest lines in the bathroom, or the F&B stand are. So having that, and being a bank and in such a complex category, our category is evolving every day, whether it be the emergence of fintechs. So we have to stay on top of our game and understand those transactional behaviors and work with people like and organizations like Shannon and her team at MLSE to really continue to move the dial on additional revenue streams, because when you spend $800 million, there's an expectation that you are delivering additional revenue and acquisition for your organization.
You said that so well. Just a little bit stressed there.
Yeah.
Can I just jump in on like one of the most important KPIs, if not the most important KPIs between a sponsor and a property, is renewal rate. Renewals are the proxy for that you're getting fair market value from both sides of the relationship, right? Like my wife and I personalize it a little bit. Every 10 years we look at each other and decide whether we're going to sign up for another 10 years. And so
how many years later?
I'm a good negotiator.
When's the next renewal?
Yeah, coming up. On the renewal side, and it's something we don't talk enough about, right? So like MLSE and the Blue Jays have a remarkable renewal rate, and that means that the partner and themselves feel like they're getting an excellent return on their investment, right? And so the other way to unlock the revenue upside is what Marnie did such a great job in terms of articulating, is giving access to the sponsors and the partners to the shared passion and the shared data for an ability to market people through the funnel. That's where we get our ROI from.
And the one thing I would say about that from the marketing side, that's when you really need to know what your brand is, because we've had a few cross my desk where I'm like, this like doesn't align with our brand values, or, and that's a hard one. But I think that's where on the marketing side, you need to say, whoa, this is like representing our brand across the country, and regardless of the revenue coming in, this doesn't align with our values or who we stand for, what we say we are. So just kind of the other side to it at times.
That's a harder battle when a lot of money's coming in.
That's when you check your tires when you pull it in.
Totally. So I think we're up for time. So are there any questions for this panel? And we have replica rings as an incentive for questions asked. We have
so
5 total.
You have the CMO of MLSE moderating your panel.
So my questions.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Tony, I'm just a sports fan. I think my question is really about a lot of the brands now are becoming global brands. So, beyond just the local markets and the fans and people buying tickets and going. Can you talk a little bit about the marketing efforts that you guys are seeing and undertaking outside the local markets, outside Canada, and what the revenue opportunities that you see there attached to them?
I can speak to the Raptors specifically. We actually have just been granted by the NBA international rights for 2 partners. So we're going to be marketing on Weibo upcoming. There's been obviously some issues with the NBA and some political issues, but the Raptors is the only one internationally that we have the right to do through the NBA right now in terms of marketing.
Yeah, and I can speak to, so not on the Blue Jays side, but on Major League Baseball, it's one of the commissioner's 4 pillars right now, and it's international events. So, I mean, like you could see with the London game and what they did, an unbelievable job, Field of Dreams game. I mean, wherever they can, they're trying. I mean, as a league, we're definitely not one of those teams that they would put out there right off the start, but I think it's a necessity to grow the game, that's for sure.
You know, I think for most global brands, they're still to this day run locally,
Yeah.
as opposed to being global. At ESPN, we had global outlets everywhere and offices across the world, and we did exactly 0 global deals because they were all managed by people who were sophisticated in their own marketplace. I think that trend is going to have to change. I think something like esports, which you brought up, the fact that so much consumption is happening outside of the US, you could have somebody within the US who has a global title, but they're worried about the fact that they just lost 30 to 40% of their audience to Southeast Asia or to Europe. So for now, it's still a regional business for marketers.
Yeah, the way I think about it is a good brand transcends borders, cultures, and languages, but needs to be locally rooted to develop an emotional connection, right? So Nike, you don't want to be an American company doing business in Canada. You want to be a global company that understands the Toronto market or the Vancouver market. So I like that answer. It's as much about organizational design, but that's the beauty of sport, right? We can be truly global, but we've got to develop that emotional connection, and that comes through consumer insights.
Fantastic.
Come get your ring.
Come get your ring.
Come get your ring.
I was just wondering how you guys try to keep fans engaged with teams that might be at the bottom of standings.
Was that directed towards me? What? It can be directed toward the Leafs right now, too. I'm just
Does he get a ring for that question?
Yeah, seriously.
I would argue not.
For us, I actually view it as a challenge. I say to my team every day, like, what we're really doing is setting the foundation to hopefully be able to win and win for a longer time than before. I mean, for us, it's really figuring out what you can focus on in years where you can't control the performance on the field. So it's funny, we last year had a situation, I've had so many of these that I've gone to over the past couple of weeks, and someone will say like, oh, you guys did an awful job at like marketing your young talent last year. And I just like bite my lip because we had major union issues, which was why we did not market our young talent. So there's a lot of those types of things, but hopefully this year it's the same thing. You look at kind of what you have in front of you, what your product is, you know your brand, and at that point in time, you do everything you can to try and make it a fun atmosphere to bring fans to and have them buy into what you're essentially building. And really as marketers, that's all you can do because you can't control the performance on the field.
And content's so important now. So, I mean, off ice, court, and pitch, what are our players doing? What are they doing in the community? Is a great way to engage fans outside of team performance itself.
Yeah, I think our players are like essential to the growth of all of our sports, and the storytelling behind our players and our players buying into some of these challenges that we're talking about, because they are really the like heroes of the game, and they are who the younger generation's connecting with. And for us, I know that's going to be essential to us attempting to grow the game.
And I would just add that the sponsor has a responsibility too, because we're not going to be optimizing our investment if there's no fans at the game, if performance is not there. And I hate to keep going back to my friend Shannon, but we've got this great example of the Next Generation game presented by Scotiabank. And Michael talked about shared passion. That's a shared passion that we both have about growing the game. And once a year now, this is going to be year 3?
Third year, yeah.
Third year of the Next Generation game presented by Scotiabank, where we're urging season ticket holders at a Leaf game, and we're bringing out young kids who've never had the opportunity to be at a Leafs game, and getting them to experience that special experience.
We actually did some research at ESPN where we studied the emotional behavior of effectiveness of advertising, and it was just as high when a team was winning as it was when a team was losing. You either wanted love or hate. What you didn't want was apathy. And so I think even during the down seasons, you're not less of a fan, you're just an aggravated fan. Yeah. And so sometimes there's an opportunity for brands to come in and do what we call mood repair, where you actually give them something to feel better about the fact that we're all in this together and it kind of sucks.
Come on up for your ring.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Jeevan. I'm from the DeGroote School of Business at McMaster University. We spent a lot of time talking about enhancing the stadium experience. My question is around how can we enhance, or is there potential to enhance the viewing experience from your home? We see a lot of emerging technology like VR headsets and augmented reality. Do you think that's a fad, or is it here to stay?
Anyone want to take that one?
In the home or?
Out of stadium.
From your couch.
I personally don't know that that's ever going to replace couch behavior, the idea of VR. I think there are applications for VR, AR, and MR all in society, and that is a trend that will continue to happen. I don't think it replaces the idea of someone wanting to be able to watch on a screen, whatever screen that is in their home, to be able to connect to. I think what you're going to see more of is interactivity with the screen itself.
Yeah.
So you're going to see this notion of there's an expectation now not to have a passive experience when watching video, obviously, right? I'm stating the obvious. But that hasn't migrated itself to the TV and to the couch yet, and it will. So watching a live game and being able to interact with that game in real time is going to become an expectation. It'll probably manifest itself with sports betting most quickly, but I think there's other applications as well.
Yeah.
Great.
Do you guys agree?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought it up.
Totally.
I'm going to transition a little bit from VR and that kind of capacity, but we look at journey mapping from the viewing experience at home too. And one of the things we talk about, let's look at sports or entertainment. Cineplex, a big sponsor of ours on the Scene program, has actually partnered with Uber Eats to make sure that viewer at home can get the Cineplex popcorn. So we're talking with our partners on looking at like-minded brands and other partners, and where can we come together and offer the fan watching at home a unique offer, a unique experience like an Uber Eats offer, and so they feel like they're a part of the game.
I love how technology can be used in terms of creating community, right? Like there's this beautiful tribal nature about sports that we all love. And it was like you and your son watching the baseball, right? Like 80% of the people at home are watching sports on 2 different devices. So I love the idea of being able to have a community with my 5 best friends here watching a Jays game, right? Or a larger community in terms of what we can do from a microtransaction perspective, from a merchandising perspective, interacting with the streamers and influencers that Shannon's going to bring on board, from the gaming side or from statistics. It's a great time to be a sports fan. So VR, like who knows, but in terms of the connectivity and the storytelling cross-platform, great opportunity for sponsors and teams.
So I think we're out of time right now. I see that. So can we give a round of applause to our panel?